YouTubers. So today I'm going to be talking about my 3 pregnancies and some experiences that I had with a few of them. And from the beginning is my firstborn, Sky. I ended up having her at 39 weeks because she was breech. And if you don't know what breech means, it means she wasn't head down in the fetal position to give birth naturally. So her head was up here in my rib cage and her feet were hanging straight down. I'm supposed that they could have turned her or tried to turn her by pressing on my stomach, but I was already large enough. I didn't feel like them pressing on me because I didn't, I already felt like I was going to pop. So that being said, I had her at 39 weeks with the C-section. I ended up staying at the hospital for 2 days. The first day, we were in there for maybe, 30 minutes and she was out of me. I remember, I didn't feel no pain. I wasn't scared. It was just, natural. She was born 6 pounds and 3 ounces. And the day we left the hospital, she was 5 pounds and 13 ounces. She was a small baby doll sized baby. She was really healthy. Nothing wrong with her. Then for my second pregnancy was with Everly, and I found out I was pregnant by taking a test at Walmart. I just figured, I'm tired. I need to figure out why. It just felt like, hey, I need to take a test. So I ended up taking one at Horn Lake Walmart in Mississippi because that's where we were at the time. We were visiting one of his friends and I had to do some running, so I went to Walmart. And I beat on the stick and I waited, and Lord behold, I was pregnant. So I drove back home and broke the news to him. He was happy. At the time we were in the process of moving, so it was just all kind of like clashed together. Then I told y'all about in my first video that at 16 weeks pregnant with Everly, we ended up having the car wreck. If you want to hear that story, you can go back and watch the first video I posted about the car wreck. It's part 2 to pregnancy abuse and abandonment. And it'll explain a lot of that. So anyways, a few days after the car wreck, I didn't feel the baby move or kick like it was supposed to. So I ended up going back to the emergency room. And I had them check the baby, which she seemed to be doing fine. She was kicking. She was moving. She was pretty healthy. As far as I could tell. I mean, you really can't tell from a video until the baby gets here. But I ended up having her also at 39 weeks C-section. Not because she was breech, but because she was like a second C-section. They called it a repeat C-section. That went okay. She ended up being 6 pounds and 14 ounces. And she was 6'6" by the time we got to leave the hospital. Now, I had a very bad experience with this hospital called St. Francis in Memphis. We were there for 3 days. The first day I had her, they went to take blood out of my arm, and I already had a port that was in my arm, so I don't understand why they had to make another one. I asked the nurse, and she just kind of brushed it off. Then the nurse that took blood out of my arm ended up leaving a tourniquet on there, which cut my circulation and ended up turning my arm purple. And I ended up telling her boss about it because that's just ridiculous. Like, that's negligence in her part. They shouldn't have left the room without taking that off. Anyways, I was frustrated. I told my mom about it. She was there with me to help me take care of the baby for that week. So, after that, the next day, they said that if we got up and started walking around, then they would maybe let us go home early. So I'm like, okay, cool. Went to a parenting class that they had us do and started walking. And then the next day hits and we don't go home early. They say we would discharge at 12 o'clock noon but we didn't end up discharging until 5 o'clock. The reason for that was because nobody would bring us a wheelchair like they were supposed to. And I got angry. Mom got angry. We finally said, okay, I'm going to walk out of here if you don't bring me a wheelchair. So they finally got one of the doctors on staff to go and get me the wheelchair. And we went home. Now, when we got home, it was even more ridiculous because we got there and there's a bunch of power line trucks out in the driveway. Apparently, a tree in our backyard had fell on a power line, ended up breaking it, so nobody could go in the house because it was considered dangerous at this time. They said that they were going to turn off the electric and all kinds of crazy stuff, and I about had it because I just wanted to go in the house and relax because I just had a baby and I wasn't feeling up to it. But after a while, they finally got everything taken care of and the electric came back on. So we went in the house, everything was good, and Mom ended up going home in like a few days. Then a few months later, I take Everly to the doctor, the clinic we usually go to get checked up for her weight, and she wasn't gaining any weight. So they instruct us to feed her more ounces more often every few hours. And at this point, she was only taking between 2 and 3 ounces, and that's all she would take. If she went over 3 ounces, she would spit up, and she spit up most of it anyway. So we went back in a few weeks. She still wasn't gaining weight. They asked if we were feeding her, if we were neglecting to do it correctly, how many wet diapers she was getting, how many dirty diapers, and so on and so on. Then the next time we went for a weight checkup, they ended up calling CPS, which was Child Protective Services, on us to have them come out, and said that we were doing medical negligence or nutrition negligence, however you want to say it. And that wasn't the case. But, I said, feel free, investigate. Like, there's nothing wrong here. I'm feeding her. I don't know what's going on. So the next time we went to have a weight checkup, she still wasn't gaining weight. So I went to Le Bonheur because they had told us, hey, you need to take her to Le Bonheur, which is the children's hospital in Memphis. And, they will run some tests and see what's going on. So I ended up taking her there. And while we were there, they ended up putting her on an IV because her iron was low, her bilirubin levels were high, her liver enzymes were elevated, which could indicate some kind of infection. So after a while, they're like, I hate to inform you, but we're going to have to admit her into the hospital because she hasn't gained weight. She looks puny. We need her to start gaining weight before we can release her and, make sure nothing's going on. So when they started doing the first set of tests, they're like, she could have a heart problem, a heart murmur. She could have lung issues. We don't know why she's not gaining weight. And at first she wasn't gaining weight in the hospital, but then, the more they fed her, the more she was gaining weight. But we were feeding her by the instructions on the can at home, and they were feeding her by pre-made bottles that already come in a package. So I pointed out that to the doctors, and they're like, there's not a difference in it, which that's a lie because the pre-made bottles are more concentrated than the ones at home are, where you pre-make a bottle. Also, we weren't feeding her any different. We fed her the same exact amount. And after, about a week, they said, hey, you can take her home. She's gaining weight. Come back in a few weeks and we will check again. So we took her back. She was losing weight at this point, not really gaining anything else. So they're like, we're going to have to readmit her back into the hospital. And I'm like, oh my God. Now I have to inform her dad about it because he's at work and I have to go home to pick up my daughter from school, get my stuff together to come stay the night at the hospital for a few days. And it was just one big headache. So the second time we went to have her admitted into the hospital. I'm like, can't they change her formula? Because he had 2 kids from a previous relationship that had colic really bad and had to be on special formula. And none of the doctors were listening to me. And then after a while, they came in the room and they told me, hey, she has something like going on with her upper lip. She's not providing a proper latch on her bottle, which could be making her suck in air and why she's spitting up a lot. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because it was hard for her to latch on to my breast whenever I started out breastfeeding her. And then I wasn't producing like I should, so I went straight to formula. And then ended up being that they finally changed her formula after me telling them for almost a month and a half that, hey, maybe it's her formula. She needs better concentrated formula, something with a higher calorie count. I think that's what's going on. At this point, I didn't know for sure. So they changed her formula, said she could have had a milk allergy, and then ended up being she also had acid reflux, which caused her to spit up a lot. So they ended up prescribing her some medicine called ranitidine, which they eventually told us not to take because it caused cancer. And they gave us an off-brand after that called famotidine, and we would give that to her once a day. Then after that, she seemed to be doing better after changing formula. She started gaining weight. She's not 6 pounds and like 14 ounces anymore. At this point, she's 11 to 12 pounds at this point in time, which she is 6 months right now. So in that amount of time, she did gain weight after switching formula. That was a scary time. At this point in time, CPS went away and it never bothered us again. The lady was really nice. She ended up closing the case and saying that, don't worry about it. They were just, worried about the baby. I'm like, okay, but, they had a point of making you feel so low, like you're a terrible parent and that you're doing something wrong with your child, when in fact it was due to her not being able to keep food down because she had acid reflux and she had a milk allergy. So anyways, moving on. This is my 3rd pregnancy at the moment. I am 11 weeks and 3 days, and I'm also doing October like Everly was. This one was not planned. It just sort of happened. Everly is 6 months, so she'll be about a year when this one's born. I look forward to it. Probably gonna have another C-section, which I'm totally fine with because, at least I get to rest at home and possibly have my mom come back down here and help me out with the babies until then. But anyways, I just wanted to share some of these crazy experiences with you and let you know what happened to me, and let you know that don't feel afraid to, speak up and tell everybody what your thoughts are on the situation, because a lot of the doctors and nursing staff will make you feel like you're doing the wrong thing and that, it's your fault, and entirely it's not. Like, you did everything you could and you're just trying your best. And that's what I proved to the doctors. So I will wrap this video up and stay in touch because I will be doing another video here soon. Thank you.